As you've seen, there's so much to love about the upgraded Pixel camera, including its amazing video capability, which still holds its place as the best video on a smartphone for the second year in a row, by the way.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
I almost lost it. I don't think Google is lying to us, at least not any more than any other brand is lying to us when they market a new product.
Our Pro models already lead the way in smartphone video.
When I heard them say this,
The best video on a smartphone
I was a lot skeptical. I was very skeptical.
for the second year in a row, by the way.
But since Google is saying that this is the best video on a smartphone for the last 2 years, I decided, why not compare it to my 2-year-old iPhone 15 Pro. Right off the bat, I'm not going to tell you which camera is which because I want you to examine them both uncritically. I don't want you to just say,
I've got an iPhone and I love iPhone, so that's the better one.
look at them both, see what parts of the images you like, what parts you don't like, and overall, which image you would prefer. And if you want, you can leave a comment below guessing which is which before I reveal the answers in just a minute.
4K 24 main camera, color reproduction.
So to be completely transparent here, I am completely bought into the Apple ecosystem. Phone, computer, iPad, AirPods, Apple TV, the whole nine. But I am not necessarily a fanboy. I think there probably are better alternatives in pretty much any individual category. But I'm so in the whole ecosystem and things just work, so rarely am I ever tempted to leave in order to pursue one individual product. I also happen to be one of the probably very few people that use this for video all the time. And I don't mean only just regular like family capturing life moment filming camera. I use this as my B camera to my FX3. And I don't just mean sometimes, I mean this is my B camera. So in this video, I want to test these two phones, I guess against each other, but in those two main categories, as a regular run and gun, fully automatic native camera app, just point and shoot camera, but then also as a filmmaking tool where I'm trying to dial in the settings and get the best image quality that I can in a workflow that fits for how I make videos. And the reason I give that last caveat is because I know there are weird backdoor hacky kind of ways to get to the sensor and pull out other sensor data. I'm not messing with any of that. I'm using standard camera apps from the App Store, just doing the most that I can with that. All right, let's dive into the fully automatic video comparisons. I gotta stay hydrated. Coming into this, I had a few assumptions about what was gonna happen. I was definitely skeptical about Google saying they had the best video on a smartphone, but I assumed two things. One, I assumed when it comes to fully automatic video, the Pixel 10 Pro would pull ahead from the iPhone 15 Pro. This is for a few reasons, namely that modern smartphone photography, videography is almost more computer than it is camera. And so my assumption was that given that the Google is 2 generations newer, but also that in general, Google I think has a pretty significant lead in terms of AI stuff over Apple, I thought the auto exposure, regular point and shoot kind of video, the Pixel would pull ahead, no problem. And I was wrong in almost every way. Oh, by the way, surprise, the iPhone was camera A. This next shot I think is going to show a lot of the issues that I had with the Pixel and where the iPhone really does shine. So we're going to talk about stabilization, lens transitions, and weird ghosting artifacts. So on the iPhone here, we're starting on the ultra wide, we're walking sideways, going to punch into the 1x lens, then again into the 3x lens. Takes a little second to transition. It's a little bit shaky, a little bit blurry. The light was coming down, the sun was setting. Punch back out. 1x, and now we have the car going by. Now this shot, when we head over to the Pixel, the first thing we're going to notice is in some sense it does have a better white balance. If you look at the concrete, it's going to be gray as opposed to kind of blue on the iPhone. But the iPhone also favors a cooler image a little bit in general, especially if you look at skies, they're going to have more blue in them. But the concrete is what we want to look at here because it's very smeary here. And if we actually watch it, you see that? Some weird kind of floating artifacts jumping up around, up and down. And then we turn the iPhone shot back on. It's just rock solid. It looks fantastic. So this is still the Pixel. We're going to punch into the 1X. You see that kind of jarring transition? So here, this is the iPhone. Pretty smooth. This is the Pixel. Jump in and pop. Now we're going to punch it again to that 5X lens. And once we get in, you can see, I mean, we're way more zoomed in on that 5X lens. But this is where the image in my head really falls apart. So we're going to zoom right back out to that red car, and it's going to drive by. And we're going to backtrack here. Now look at this. Maybe some of you have already seen it, but the detail in the shadows of this car is very muddy. And it isn't just that it's muddy. Actually, as we go frame by frame, let's see, you can start to see it. There's some image doubling going on. There's a second wheel here, same with this other one. And it's kind of just lagging behind the car. Here's another wheel sticking out behind it. It's falling behind. And this happens for us in all sorts of scenarios. And it's really unfortunate because that's where I was hoping the Pixel would pull ahead with its, more advanced computational brain. One big difference between the phones that I kept noticing was that the stabilization on the iPhone was just much smoother. The Pixel has a kind of a known issue where when you're walking with it especially, the stabilization just feels like kind of jittery. So when we watch the iPhone here, this is on the 1X lens, it's feeling nice and smooth. You can tell I'm walking a little bit, but then when we do that same section on the Pixel, things just feel almost like they're vibrating, which is not the case on the iPhone. So even though I think the Pixel has more dynamic range, it might be a little bit sharper, it's a less pleasing image to look at because it's just kind of vibrating. And that's not what you want your camera to do. So when it comes to fully automatic, auto exposure, auto everything, default camera apps, I personally prefer the iPhone in general. I think there are definitely times where the Pixel comes ahead, and I certainly wouldn't be choosing one of them over the other just based off of auto video. I think for most people, both of these are going to make great video and you're going to be totally happy. But is the Pixel 10 Pro obviously better or worthy of being the best video on a smartphone for 2 years? I really don't think so. So when it comes to point and shoot, grab and go video, the results kind of surprised me, but that's only one way that I shoot video on a phone. The other way is in a more controlled environment like this. So let's have a look at what these cameras look like when we're locking things down, we're dialing in our settings manually, and we're using them more like the tools we use on a day-to-day basis for our videos. This video is sponsored by Artlist, a tool that I have been using personally for nearly a decade at this point. So I'm sure you've heard me talk about their enormous library of high-quality, royalty-free music and sound effects and all sorts of other editing goodies that you're gonna need to polish up your projects. But they're also adding new features to the platform all the time. If you've been on social media almost at all over the last few months, then you've probably seen some pretty wild videos being generated using Google's VO 3. Well, Artlist not only lets you generate these videos with audio using VO 3, but they've also recently cut the cost of usage on their platform in half. So your credits will go twice as far. Well, Google also recently came out with another image generation model called Nano Banana. And so I want to show you how that works and what I'm excited about using it for. Head over to Artlist and select their AI image and video tab. And from here, we're going to select image to image. And what this is going to do is this is going to let us seamlessly combine elements from different photos or adjust pieces of a photo without destroying the entire photo. In the past, if you were to ask an AI image generator to change just one part of a photo, it's still gonna regenerate the entire image. And this is gonna cause all sorts of issues in other parts of the frame. Now what we can do is we can say, take this photo of me holding the Pixel 10 Pro and put me into this scene. And maybe that's all you need. Or maybe you might say something like, now make my shirt red, and then ta-da, you're done. This for me is a surprisingly big deal because I hate making thumbnails for my YouTube videos, and I'll often opt to just selecting a frame grab from the video and saying, bah, that's good enough. But now I have a surprisingly easy option to create compelling thumbnails without needing to learn another piece of software. So if you want to learn more and get 2 free months off of an annual subscription, click the link down in my description. And thank you, Artlist, for sponsoring this video. And no thank you, Photoshop, for making my brain hurt. Suck it. I don't like you.
Photoshop.
So the second assumption I made was about how these phones would fare in a more professional environment, where we're trying to use these phones to unlock the best image quality that we can that's also utilizing a regular workflow. And my assumption was that the iPhone was going to be substantially better at this than the Pixel would be. I mean, the iPhone's had ProRes footage and log for several years now, and I have talked at length many times about how much I love the video on my iPhone 15 Pro. I was right about that one. When we compare what I was able to get out of the iPhone to the Pixel 10 Pro, there's really no comparison. This right here is a camera setup I've used in many of my videos before, sometimes using my FX3, but several times I've just used my iPhone for this exact shot setup. It's just a simple key light on me with the natural light pouring in behind me. And when we pull up our stuff here, this is what the raw clip looks like. And then I have my standard color grade on here, and it looks honestly quite good. I have no problems with this. I'm not a colorist, so you might not love the colors, but I think they're decent and they look like what I would want them to look like. However, when we jump over to the Pixel, it is a totally different story. I mean, we can kind of... For the shooting of this ad read, we did a couple different things. So on the Pixel 10 Pro, we used the Blackmagic app, we turned off sharpening, we turned off the denoising, we set the bitrate as high as we could, and then we just manually exposed it to get the best exposure that we could, at least to our eyes on screen. For the iPhone, I use an app called Perla, and I love this app because not only do I get to shoot ProRes 422 LT, I could technically shoot ProRes 4444, but I'm shooting that in Sony S-Log 3 right onto my iPhone. And what that means is that when I plug the footage into my computer, I can put the same grade that I would on my FX3 right onto my iPhone, and they're going to match right out of the box. But when we jump over to the Pixel, it's kind of a different story. There's a little bit of weird detail stuff going on, but if we turn off the grade, if you will, the corrections, we've got weird pink skin. My lips are like nuclear here, and we were trying to match settings as much as we could, but like there's just, this to me feels like it looks kind of professional. This feels not cool. I don't think we nailed the grade here. We were trying to match them up, but was not super happy with that. A shot I was super happy with, however, is this shot right here. This is the ultra wide on the iPhone. Same idea, just a little bit of a key light on me. I'm sitting on the floor. I got a cat behind me. The grade was super easy, and this to me is probably my favorite shot of the whole ad read. I just think it looks professional and it doesn't scream shot on an iPhone. Unfortunately, when we get to the Pixel, things really fall apart here. This is the Pixel 10 Pro in comparison. Now, the shot was much wider because we had stabilization turned off in the Blackmagic app, which gave it a much wider field of view. However, one thing that is strange is even with the same settings in the Blackmagic app, this image was so much brighter. So we actually had to crank the shutter more on this in order to get a similar exposure. But for whatever reason, the skin in here feels like it's just a single shade of peach. There's no real tonality. We tried to warm it up to look like the other stuff, but it just kind of fell apart and looks bad. Whereas when we come over here, we can see there's like highlights, midtones. The skin is kind of like rich and brown and warm and nice. And this feels like not good. I'm sure a colorist could make it better, but it does not feel good. Hopping over to the telephoto lens, I think here things are a little bit closer. I think the iPhone still has the benefit of better color overall. The focus might be slightly off. It looks like maybe we got the background. Whereas the Pixel 10 Pro is a much longer lens, so we have to adjust composition. But when we toggle them, the Pixel again is trying to hold all that dynamic range, which makes the skin feel like a singular shade of kind of plastic. Whereas the iPhone has a nicer kind of roll off from highlight into shadows. It's just richer and better. And this for me is actually why I love shooting in log on the iPhone so much, is that it disables all of that smart HDR stuff going on. It's not trying to do any of the image balancing for you. It lets you do that in post. And as I mentioned, I use my iPhone as my B camera. I use it for talking heads. I use it as a top-down angle all the time for product videos. And I have been consistently happy with the footage out of this phone for quite a long time. I think if I was a Pixel 10 Pro owner, I'd think it was a pretty great phone, but I wouldn't be using it as a B camera to my Sony. I could imagine people using it for just general social media content, but is it the best video on a smartphone? No. Like, I don't even think it's close to being able to say that. And we haven't even talked about the iPhone 17 Pro. This is just compared to a 2-year-old iPhone. So if I got something wrong in my testing, I'm sure people will let me know in the comments. Go down there and check it out. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Phone video is cool. It's way better than it used to be. And that's the goal, right? Be better than you used to be. Thanks for watching. Bye.